already started, y'all. I am so excited, okay? This is our last webinar of the year. Can you believe it? I'm a little heartbroken. I'm a little sad. But you see, I dressed up for y'all today, okay? I'm giving you turtleneck, okay? I'm giving you a lot. So we are going to go out with a bang, all right? So I want to let you guys know today's topic is maximize your momentum. I don't know about y'all, but going into the end of the year, I want to make sure we hit the ground running, okay? We're going to come in strong. We're going to make sure that we finish strong because that's what we do here. We're going to do it big. So this year, this session is all about boosting your year-end fundraising. And y'all, we are joined by two amazing experts, okay? We have Mallory Erickson and we have Jacob from Community Boost, okay? Today is gonna be a session that you don't wanna miss, okay? If you have friends who are thinking, okay, let me join, let me not join, make sure you let them know you don't wanna miss out on this last Givebutter webinar because we are gonna give you the details that are gonna help you scale, okay? So let's jump right into today's agenda. So you know how we like to do things. We're going to do some welcome and introductions. Y'all going to hear from me. We're going to go and do a Giving Tuesday recap because we had the biggest Giving Tuesday ever on Givebutter, okay? We're going to go over some year-end best practices. We're going to do a Q&A so you can talk to our experts live, and then we're going to go over some final reminders. But before we get started, we have a quick question that we want to ask you guys. So one thing that we've been noticing, we did a little end-of-year survey. One thing that we've been noticing is that we have people who are currently Givebutter users, and we have people who are not Givebutter users. So we want to actually send this live poll question to each of you and find out where you fit in the mix, okay? So we're going to go ahead and launch this poll. Do you have the Givebutter account, and have you used Givebutter for any of your campaigns? We just want to know what your demographic is. So don't worry, we're not going to share these answers live. We just want to know where you fit in the mix, okay? So while you're answering those questions, I want to go into some housekeeping notes for the rest of the session. So with our housekeeping, you guys know the drill, okay? We want to make sure that you keep the Q&A use the Q&A for questions, okay? We have a lot of you guys in the chat, which I love. One thing I love about our Givebutter fam, y'all love to chat, okay? So use the Q&A if you have specific questions that we can answer for you or we can send to our panelists. Use the comment section as well. Don't forget, I like when you talk back to me. You already know if you've been on one of my webinars, I'll be chatting with y'all in the chat. So make sure you use the chat, comment in here. If you like something and you're with me, use the chat, okay? Also, keep the chat kind and respectful. We're one big fam, as I always say, sure that we approach it as such. My colleague Steven will answer your Givebutter questions in the Q&A or in the chat as well. And then last but not least, I always like to know who is in the Facebook fam. If you're in our actual Facebook fam, make sure you comment I'm in and let me know. We are continuing to put more great exclusive content in our Facebook fam. So I want to know if you're in that Facebook fam, make sure you comment I'm in and let me know, okay? Obviously, if you guys don't know me, I'll introduce myself a little bit. My name is Floyd Jones. I am calling from Detroit, okay? I just moved to Detroit from DC, so it's real cold over here. It continues to snow in Michigan. I see some of y'all are in Michigan currently, so y'all should have gave me a heads up. I just got the most expensive jacket I ever could imagine to keep me warm. But I am in the Success and Partnerships Manager here at Givebutter. I've continued to work with small organizations throughout my career, and I'm super excited that I get to do that even more here at Givebutter. So now, also, by the way, I chat a lot on LinkedIn. So if you don't follow me on LinkedIn, go ahead and do that. Let's keep the conversation going after this session is over. So next, I want to go over our Giving Tuesday recap. Okay. If y'all thought this Giving Tuesday was epic at Givebutter, can you just let me know what your thoughts were in the chat? Because listen, I had an amazing time on Givebutter. We were chatting, we were on social media, we were seeing amazing campaigns go through. And in case you didn't already hear the news, yes, Jessica says so amazing. I'm with you, Jessica. Listen, we gave away over $50,000 $50,000 this year to organizations that were on Givebutter this Giving Tuesday. And some people were like, okay, how'd they do it? Let me tell you, we were up from sun up to sundown, figuring out who we're going to give this money to. But I'm so excited to announce we gave away over $50,000 to some of our most creative campaigns and some of our most active campaigns. Some people who won these awards are actually on the call today. So major shout out to you all. A little bit of an overarching recap for what we did on Giving Tuesday. So while we donated over $50,000, there was over $3.7 million raised for change makers and amazing campaigns on the platform. And almost $2 million were raised in the days after Giving Tuesday. We supported over 2.2 thousand campaigns, and we had over 21,000 supporters across the board. I don't know about y'all, but y'all need to give yourselves a round of applause because that blew me away. Also, our support team crushed it, of course. We had more chats than we could have ever imagined, but we had such a high satisfaction rate, so we were right in the trenches with you all. But with no further ado, I want to get right into the content, okay? So as I mentioned, today is all about maximizing your momentum and boosting your year-end fundraising campaign. And like I said, we have amazing panelists who are joined with us today. But before I turn over the reins to them, I want to just share a few tips that we have here at Givebutter. So first, I want you guys to know how to target your outreach, okay? So a lot of you guys participated in Giving Tuesday, and a lot of you guys saw a lot of amazing traction. One of the things that our expert is gonna talk about today is learning how to actually target your messaging to specific people. And before we go into those details, I want you guys to know how you can do that on Givebutter. So first is using filters, okay? In the contacts tab or in the transactions tab in Givebutter under track, you can actually filter your donors, okay? So maybe you want to filter just for Giving Tuesday donors. Maybe you want to filter just for people who have given you $50 in the past. Maybe you want to filter all the people who gave you money to you in March of this year. You name it, you can do it, okay? You can create those filters, you can save those filters, and then you can specifically target the people within those filters, okay? And you can send customized and targeted messaging based off of those filters, which actually brings me to my second point. The second point after you target your outreach is make sure you tell your story, okay? So step one is who are you talking to, right? And then step two is making sure that you tell that story effectively to the people you're talking to. Jacob's gonna go into a lot more detail about this shortly, but I wanna let you guys know on Givebutter, we have the tools for you to take your messaging to the next level, okay? You can utilize tools like Engage. Soon we're gonna be giving you opportunity to use things like campaign updates and even customize outbound text messaging, all to the segment of people that you want to target the most. So make sure you're sharing you're sharing your story effectively. And then as I mentioned for point three, make that ask, okay? Utilize features like Engage to make that ask. In case you didn't know, nearly 1/3 of all annual giving happens in the last month of the year, okay? Giving Tuesday happened in November. So if you're ready for more donations, say, I'm ready, okay? If you're ready for more donations, I want to see in the chat, I'm ready, because today is going to be talking all about how you can capitalize on the rest of the year, but most importantly, how you can mobilize your donors for that final impact. And as I mentioned earlier with Engage, we have over 20 plus unique features that you guys can utilize this year, from emails, text. Okay, I love that. I'm seeing the chat go off. Crystal's ready, okay? Grace is ready. Valerie is ready. Jessica's ready. So if you're ready to continue, oh, and Amy says she's ready in the SpongeBob voice. I'm ready. Okay, I hope I did that right. But I'm with you guys. I'm ready as well. And today's session, again, is all about helping to get you guys ready to finish this year strong, okay? So with no further ado, let's jump right in, okay? So the first person that I'm going to bring up is the amazing, the wonderful Jacob. I call him Joyful Jacob. He don't know I call him Joyful Jacob, but when I pull him on, you're going to see why we call him Joyful Jacob, okay? So Jacob has been a part of the Community Boost team for a year and a half. He's originally from Orange County, but he's lived in San Diego for the last 8 years and doesn't see himself leaving every time. And I don't know why he would leave. I love San Diego. His favorite part of his job is talking to nonprofits on a daily basis and seeing how many organizations there are doing community and world-changing work. He considers it a privilege whenever he is let into their world to talk through digital strategy. If it's not surfing, then it's the office or the Lakers. So anyway, with no further ado, please welcome the digital marketing specialist at Community Boost, Jacob. Hello, Jacob.
Hello, how's it going, Floyd? Okay, I feel like you coming up with Joyful Jacob as a nickname for me, like following you and the joyful precedents that you've set, I don't know if I can fully live up to that nickname.
Hey, lean into it. We gotta grow. Sometimes we gotta speak things and just lean into it. It's gonna be
manifest
fun.
it. Manifest
Exactly.
Amazing.
Jacob, you have such amazing tools, amazing tips. I remember the first time that we talked and you started giving me all these things. You see what I took from you? Targeting your community, okay? That was all from you. You said, find your community, give them the message that they need to hear, and speak specifically to them. I love that, and I cannot wait for all the things that you're going to download for the Givebutter community today.
Exactly. And I'm excited to dive into it. And I have a lot that I want to dive into, and so we're just going to jump in. And so, Floyd, thank you so much for that introduction. Again, yes, it's an absolute pleasure to meet y'all. My name is Jacob, and I obviously work with the Community Boost team. And like Floyd alluded to, day in and day out, what my day consists of is talking to nonprofits of all sizes and subsectors, helping them uncover their goals and determine which digital platforms and strategies can help them scale their revenue and scale their impact. And I really just think of today as a pleasure to be able to talk with y'all. As Floyd alluded to, Givebutter is such an amazing tool that lets you tap into so much information to help scale and amplify at this time of the year. And so what I really want to dive into with my time today is a specific platform that in very similar ways we can also utilize in conjunction with Givebutter. And that tool that we're going to be diving into and that I'm going to be really walking us through today is just the tool of social media advertising. And so as you can see in front of you, when we're looking at Facebook and Instagram and even WhatsApp and Messenger in the year 2021, it's been determined that there are over 3.21 billion people active on these platforms. Yes, that is billion. And while that's a lot, that probably doesn't feel all that far off to us. It is the year 2021. Being online and social media, it's interwoven now into the very fabric of our day-to-day lives. If you're walking around outside, it will probably only take a couple of minutes before you almost run into someone because their heads are buried in their phone. And so we know this. Like this is our reality. We experience this. And so from a marketing perspective, what does this tell us? What does this tell us? It tells us that we know where attention is at. It is online and it's on these channels specifically. But the data doesn't stop there. In addition to the 3.21 billion people on these platforms, to date, there's also over $3 billion raised on Facebook directly. Yes, that is billion with a B. You want to talk about end of year giving? How about that? Let's set the goal there. And so not only are we finding increases of how many people are online, but we're actually continuing to see similar increases in how individuals are tapping into these channels to actively support our organizations. Over the last 3 years, there's been an increase of over 32% in online revenue in the nonprofit space. So what that's telling us is that there's an opportunity that we need to actively tap into. And so the question is raised, how and why? What are we talking about here? Why are Facebook and Instagram advertising arguably the most effective and scalable marketing channels on the planet? We'll get to the how in a second. But as for the why, it's because of the hyper-targeting and creative options that the platform gives us access to. Again, just like what Floyd was mentioning with regards to Givebutter, the more we can be tailored and targeted with our approach, the more we can integrate our donor platform system with our paid advertising, the more integrated our communication flow and our messaging can be. And so through the different targeting capabilities of Facebook and Instagram advertising and these social media channels, we're able to proactively reach individuals based on who they are and based on an endless amount of characteristics, such as actions they've taken on our site, if they're following our Facebook, if they're friends of our followers, their age, gender, geographic location, general interests, when their birthdays are. The opportunity is they're truly endless. But to sum it up in even simpler of terms, and this is kind of what Floyd stole from me in terms of how to communicate this, which no hard feelings, Floyd. I'm glad that I could provide that support. really what these platforms enable us to do is, as an organization, tell your story to the perfect audience. That boiled down, when thinking about social media advertising, that is what these platforms enable us to do. And not to toot my own community boost horn, but we've had a front row seat to this type of success. We've been able to experience result of these platform capabilities firsthand. In managing over $2.6 million in ad spend, and on average generating nearly 2.5 times return. And so I only include this to provide more proof that, you guys, these channels work. And if we aren't utilizing them within our current marketing efforts, then we're actively missing out, and we need to make it a priority, which is why I'm so glad we're talking now at end of the year, like what Floyd alluded to, when the majority of those funds are coming in. We have 3 weeks to a month to make the most of this time. And so that's what I'm hoping we can gather from today, is this can be a tool that we can test the boundaries of with the time that we have remaining. And so to jump into the first tip that I have for you, the reality is that we could spend the next couple of hours breaking down how to work the Facebook Business Manager tool, how to create lookalike audiences, create a 3-tiered campaign strategy and platform, so on and so forth. But I have about 10 minutes left and I'm already falling behind. So needless to say, we won't be able to get to all of that today. I know that a lot of you probably have a wide variety of experience within paid advertising. Maybe you haven't done it before. Maybe you're really experienced in that. With that being said, you're going to have access to my email address. And if you have any really specific questions you want to follow up with, please feel free to reach out. That is what I'm here for. I'd love to support in that way. But for the remainder of our time, I want to share with you 5 major tips to implement in your social media efforts, which can and should be kept top of mind when utilizing these platforms to amplify your results around the end of the year. And so let's start with number 1. Video is king. Why is video king? Video content enables us to tell a story in a way that brings our mission and our vision to life. Videos that are mission-centric, yet concise and relatable on platform are much more likely to be shared, which ultimately leads to higher engagement. Instead of just plain text, being hit with sound and movement helps attract eyes and keep attention longer. The more that we can stand out amidst the crowd, the more that we can stand out when people are scrolling, the higher likelihood they have of really being infatuated with what we're offering and taking that meaningful action. In addition, the retargeting capabilities of the Facebook platform, which you're going to get sick and tired of hearing me talk about retargeting and targeting capabilities. I'm just warning you now. Those capabilities, we can retarget individuals based on how long they watch our videos, which videos they watch, to help further amplify and cultivate new followers and donors. And finally, it's because of this, how people desire to digest content. We live again in 2021. We live in the era of TikTok, YouTube, Facebook stories, Instagram stories. Video content is how people prefer to digest their content. And so by implementing this in our strategic approach, we're literally meeting people where they're wanting to be met. And so I just included a couple examples of ads to throw in front of you, you all here, and I'll let you be the judge. Take a look at these 2 ads and you tell me which one jumps off the page at you. Which one is more likely to hold your attention? It's safe to assume that it's likely the one on the left. And that's just from a GIF or a GIF, or however you personally prefer to pronounce that word. I've never, totally heard the correct way. And not even a full-blown video. And so I just provide this to scratch the surface of man, it really does capture my attention more. And when we're talking about marketing, it's all about capturing that attention. And so let's move on to tip number 2. The second tip to keep in mind when creating our ad campaigns to glean information from is to keep users on our Facebook platform. Now, this admittedly comes with a ton of nuance. Obviously, we've touched base, we've talked about the immense value that the Givebutter platform provides as a donor management software. And best practice is that when we come forward with an ask in our Facebook advertising campaigns, that ad drives them to taking that action through those platforms on our websites. We're probably all familiar with the fact that when people donate through Facebook directly, we don't have access to the information. We can't follow up with them. It's difficult. With that being said, leading up to the ask, there are a number of benefits to driving platform, on platform engagement, prior to that ask even taking place, starting with the fact that that's where the audience is. Keeping the user experience in mind, we want to keep everything as simple and easy on their end as possible. we know that we tend to be lazy. And so the less work that we have to do, the higher likelihood that there's a higher likelihood that we're going to be willing to engage. And so as you're warming individuals up to come forward with that strong call to action, with that call to donate, keep them on platform. In addition, on-platform engagement helps build our platform following, whether that's likes, shares, followers. It helps us instill a sense of social proof and trust within our audience, while at the same time giving the machine learning and algorithms of Facebook itself more information to work with. And finally, it lowers the cost per acquisition of our engagement, because when we're running ads, Facebook is able to rank them as someone who has a positive experience viewing our ads and posts based on their previous engagement, and as a result brings the overall cost down. So again, I know that this is probably more so leading up to the actual call to donate, because we want that to be taking place through the Givebutter platform, but there's a lot of helpful data to gather and collect leading up to that we can get by focusing on keeping users on platform. And so I just wanted to provide you 2 examples of ways that we can creatively do this through Facebook. On the top, you'll see an example of an ad with a call to action around steering peer-to-peer fundraising campaigns, and the landing page on Facebook that pops up when someone clicks on that ad. And then the bottom example shows lead generation campaigns that can also be utilized to help collect helpful data on platform. Again, something which can ultimately help fuel our donor funnels as we lead up to that end of the year ask. And so we're going to keep moving forward. I know we have a lot going on. Tip number 3 I have for you today is always be testing. Not all tips are created equal. And if I were to say one of these is most crucial, always be testing is likely where I would land. A/B testing is where we look at and test 2 slightly different versions of the same ad or campaign to determine which is more successful and delivers a higher return on investment. Essentially, A/B testing allows us to do 2 separate things simultaneously. First, it enables us to uncover the messaging that resonates most with our audiences, to truly find our tone and how we interact and make asks of our constituents. And secondly, we know that we've accomplished this when our ads ultimately cost less and bring more in return. Prioritizing A/B testing is a proactive way to learn and inform your strategy moving forward, while at the same time making the most of and optimizing your campaigns in the short term. When we're talking about marketing, we want to know, hey, what can we expect to get on each dollar we put into this campaign? A/B testing is a great tool that helps us really get to, as clear of a picture of what that looks like as possible. And so in addition, I want to let you kind of into 3 different ways that, an ad can look. Each of these, A, B, and C are examples of ads that we can ultimately get to based on what our A/B testing leads us towards. One thing that I'll note here is that when you are A/B testing, your ads shouldn't look this different from one another. You want to change each ad just slightly so that you'll be able to determine what actually was a part of that success, what made it work well, and what didn't. So for example, keep everything the same, but change the picture. Keep everything the same, but just slightly alter the headline. Maybe change the call to action. Those types of small testing measures can really be make it or break it between the long-term success of a campaign and the amount of donations that they will actually generate and donate. So at the end of the day, these learnings can really help us determine what our creative should look like to generate the most return. We're still moving. I know I'm moving fast, but stick with me, because for tip number 4, we have personalization. Personalization wins. I know this is something that Floyd alluded to. This is something that Mallory is most likely going to tap into as well. But again, I think the fact that all of us are going to harp on this lends credence to the fact that it's important, and we really need to tap into why. Why is it important? Because giving is deeply personal, and so your messaging should be too. The reality is this time of year can be a noisy and cluttered time, which makes personalization that much more important to ensure that our organizations stick out. And so set the tone with a message that is concrete, that's specific, it's consistent, and it's relevant. Circling back around to the targeting capabilities of the platform, we need to be sure that our messaging is tailored to the audience that we're actively reaching out to. Messaging that is persona specific. Have they given to us before? Are they a recurring giver? Are they on our email list? Are they not? Again, this is one of the benefits of having a donor software manager like Givebutter, because we have all that data and we can target them based on that. And then finally, personalize your message by appealing to emotions. I know for a fact that each and one of your organizations has a powerful story that deserves to be told. I can say that with 100% certainty. And so don't be hesitant to do so. Tug at the heartstrings, make it known what the impact of a donation has, what that impact is to your organization. Again, Facebook is conducive to finding the perfect audience and telling our story to them. And so by doing that, you're taking advantage of what the platform has to offer. And so here you'll see that we're able to personalize how our ads are based on an audience's interests and behaviors. And so in this example, on the left-hand side, you can see that we were able to stack these interests and behaviors on top of one another, looking at interests like surf shops, surf culture, Veterans Day, veterans support, and then ultimately created and implemented an ad that is tailored directly towards that audience. Again, just on a personal level, we want to feel like we're being spoken directly to. We don't want to feel like we're just a number. We want to feel like our name is known. And so through personalization, we can create that experience for our constituents. And so to cap it off, the last tip I have to offer you guys today is to simply say thank you. This one is probably the most obvious. It's not necessarily rocket science here, but unfortunately, it's oftentimes the most overlooked. Like we already determined, like we already touched on, making a financial investment is a personal action. That's not something to be taken lightly. And so in response, in how we create these Facebook and social media campaigns, we need to lead with gratitude. This helps us in donor connection and cultivation. It makes the action of partnering with our organizations feel more like an interaction with a human as opposed to a transaction with an entity. And we can also use the data collected from these gratitude campaigns to get an idea of donor intent moving forward and utilizing these lists to remarket when our next giving campaign is coming up. If we can identify, wow, they gave and then they were highly engaged with our gratitude campaign, they're more likely warmed up to give again. And finally, we oftentimes see a positive return on ad spend in the form of donations simply by saying thank you. People choose to donate again when they are express gratitude. Being kind and thoughtful leads people to want to reciprocate with generosity. I mean, who would have thought that's the case? And so just simply want to give you two examples of what this gratitude ad, what this gratitude campaign can look like. Again, I think these ads do a great job of summing up all the tips put into action that we just walked through. You have video content. You have two different examples. So there was obviously A/B testing involved. You have clear and concise messaging, and they're expressing their gratitude. And so with all that being said, I know it was a lot. I know that there are so many specifics that we could have dived into. But to recap everything, why is social media a powerful tool when it comes to end of year giving? Because it enables us to tell our perfect story to the perfect audience. And through these tips that you see on your screen and that we just ran through, you'll be able to amplify the end of year campaigns you're running. And I promise you, if you keep these at the core, it will literally pay off. And so I'm excited for you all as you move into these next couple of weeks. Whether you are an experienced Facebook advertiser, Instagram advertiser, or you're just dipping your toes, I'm excited for what's to come, because this is a time of year where you're going to get the most bang for your buck, and these results can be really transformational. So I appreciate you guys giving me the time to share with y'all today.
Jacob, I love that. You are giving people the facts. I wish that we had more time, because there are so many questions that we're going to try to get to in the Q&A. But one person did ask a great question, Maribel. Can we drive Facebook ads to go to our website or Givebutter campaign? So Jacob, you can talk about driving them to go to the website, but I will say that you can also target how many Facebook ads are going to your Givebutter campaign. So Givebutter integrates directly with Facebook Pixel, so you can actually put that directly onto the Givebutter page, and you can actually track the conversion rate and track the effectiveness. And I believe Grace put an article on that in the chat. We also use Google Analytics. So do you want to talk about driving Facebook ads to your website, Jacob?
Exactly. Yeah, no, I mean, very similar into how it can be integrated in driving people to Givebutter. You can drive them to specific pages on your website. And so one thing that we always emphasize is, hey, let's focus on education and awareness. And so oftentimes within those campaigns, what most organizations will tend to do is they'll run a campaign that's focused on the education piece. And by clicking on that specific ad, it will then take that user to the resources page on their website or the About Us page on their website, to where, again, we are getting them to the place on our website, kind of removing some of those barriers of having to find it themselves, and based on their intent, getting them to where they are wanting and needing to get to. And so long-winded answer, but short-winded answer is yes, you can drive people specifically to pages on your site that you're wanting to get them to.
I love that. Thank you so much, Jacob. There's more where that came from, y'all. I see your questions in the Q&A, so when we get to the end, we're going to dive deep into them, okay? Thanks, Jacob.
Of course.
So we're going to go right into Mallory. So fun fact about Mallory, okay? She is like, not only is she an expert, but she is a superstar manifester, okay? So I hope y'all get your pen and paper ready because she's about to go dive deep into this so you can maximize the momentum for your fundraising, but also for your future. Okay, somebody? So, quick notes, Mallory has over a decade of experience working in every inch of the nonprofit sector, serving as the development, managing, and executive director in multiple organizations in the last 7 years. She's been fundraising in the multiple 7 figures every single year. She's supported over 50 organizations through one-on-one support in her private practice, and over 780 fundraisers have taken one of her fundraising courses. With all this experience and everything she's put into building her coaching over the last 2 years, she's figured out the secrets to being an authentic, embodied, and successful fundraiser. So with no further ado, please help me welcome Mallory from Mallory Erickson Coaching. Mallory. Oh, Mallory, you're on mute.
Of course I am. I was just deeply listening to how to do Facebook ads, and so taking some notes of myself. But I'm so happy to be here, Floyd. Thank you so much for having me and letting me join this really, really important webinar today.
Oh, I'm so excited, and I can't wait for everyone to take in the notes as well. So I'm going to kick it right over to you.
Amazing. Okay, let's dive in. So Floyd told you a little bit about the fact that I have spent my entire career inside the nonprofit sector, but I always feel like it's important to show this slide, which is that when I was an executive director running an organization, I really understand the pressure that so many of you are under to sort of put on the appearance everywhere that things are going really smoothly, but you are hustling because either your fundraising and donor pipeline isn't consistent or you're doing too many things at once. And so my practice was really born out of my lived and life experience as a fundraiser, being an executive director that hated fundraising. And so what we're going to be talking about today is how to fundamentally change the way that we can show up as fundraisers when we're doing everything from launching our Givebutter campaign to starting Facebook ads. And we're going to talk about some of the primary barriers that get in the way of people doing each of those actions as effectively as possible. So this is a little sad for you to laugh at me for a second and maybe relate to my experience as a fundraiser. So let's dive in. The first thing that I want to talk to you about on this next slide, we're going to talk about the 3 A's. And the first A that we are talking about today is adjusting your mindset. And before you're like, oh my God, not another mindset thing, here's what I want to say. A lot of people believe that mindset has to do with a mantra on your mug or something like that. But real mindset work is about exploring the thoughts and beliefs that you have that are informing the way that you feel, and then ultimately how you show up and the results that you get because of that, right? So we'll go to the next slide and I'll show you that all of this comes back to this idea of the cognitive behavior loop. So when we complete this slide, just click it 4 times and you'll have the little bubbles pop up. This is what happens inside all of us, right? Our thoughts and our beliefs inform how we feel, and then ultimately how we show up to any sort of situation. That email we're sending out about our campaign, the phone calls that we're making to our funders, right? And the energy and the action that we are taking has to do with how we feel about that thing, right? So I know I'm not the only fundraiser that before pressing send on an email to our list or to a specific donor had that kind of like rumbling, grumbling in my belly, all that fear coming coming up, right? So that's totally normal. The discomfort that we feel around fundraising is totally normal. But what's really critical is that we don't let those feelings hold us back from taking the action that's going to be the most important for fundraising, right? So a lot of the time I hear things at end of year like, oh, well, we already sent out blank many emails, or we already asked that donor blank, or that donor actually already gave to our Giving Tuesday campaign, but we were really hoping for a bigger gift this year, but now we can't ask because they gave that unsolicited gifts. Those are stories that are rooted in our thoughts and our beliefs, and they're informing how we feel, and then they're ultimately holding us back from taking the most important action for our organization. And so as you're moving into how to maximize your fundraising at the end of year, I want you to bring a level of awareness to this cognitive behavior loop where before you're going to take an action, or if you hear yourself telling yourself a story about why you shouldn't take an action, to really take that moment, take a beat and say, what are the thoughts and the beliefs behind this discomfort that I'm feeling right now? And are they true? And look at the data around this, right? Because there's so many things I watch organizations not do at the end of the year because of limiting beliefs around philanthropy and money and things like that. So I want to just start with that sort of like underlying principle. And then the thing I'll say is that, and this goes to a little bit of some of what Jacob was talking about too on the next slide, my mantra of my work is that great fundraising is not an ask, it's an offer, right? It's about partnership and opportunity, and it thrives on momentum, right? So when I started to really examine what were the thoughts and beliefs that were holding me back as a fundraiser, one of the biggest one was that I thought I was like begging people to give me money, right? To do something they didn't want to do. And I didn't realize that what great fundraising really is inspiring people to get involved in something they deeply care about, giving them an opportunity to change the world with you. I think sometimes in the nonprofit sector, we take for granted that we get to do cause-driven work every single day. And for many people, the way that they get to participate in the things that they care about deeply is in their giving. So this, like, if you're going to insert a new belief into your cognitive behavior loop for end of year, I want it to be this, that great fundraising is not an ask, it's an offer. And every time you're inviting folks to that Givebutter campaign, that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing, you know, offering them an opportunity to invest, to make a difference in the world. Okay, so I want to say a really quick thing about this too, because we can go to the 3 actions that need to take place in order for people to give. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more later, and I'm sorry I'm talking fast, but I want to give you as much as possible in our time together. So in order for folks to give to your organization, 3 things have to take place. They need to have a certain level of motivation. They need to have the ability to give, and they need to be prompted to give. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit more later, but the Givebutter campaign and the Givebutter software really increases motivation and ability because of how it's designed and how it really sort of facilitates this exciting process for the donor. But the prompt has to come from you. And that's why it's so important that you are being aware of the moments in which you're holding back prompting your donors and what's causing that, because so many times I hear, well, the donor knows that we're raising money for this, or we sent out that email 2 weeks ago. They know we still need blank. But the reality is that in order for a donor to ever take an action, they need to be prompted in that moment. Okay. Alignment. That is the second A, right? Aligning with your donors. And I won't go into too much detail here because I also think this is something that Jacob really talked about that is really important around sort of how you relate to your audience as the humans that they are with the interests that they have. But the 3 things I just want to pull out is that end of year can trigger so many of our perfectionist tendencies. And I get it. I call myself a recovering perfectionist. But as you're sharing your stories, as you're creating your campaign pages, writing those emails, segmenting your communication, I want you to focus on the know, like, trust factor 2.0, which is that in order for your funders to really know you, you need to share real stories. In order for them to really like you and like love you, you need to be vulnerable with them. And in order for them to trust you, you also need to trust them to be able to handle the truth and let them in and let them see under the rug a little bit. And the more we are authentic in the ways that we are communicating with our funders, actually, the more we build that really critical know, like, trust factor. Okay, we are cruising. So this is what I was mentioning earlier before. Behavior, I do a lot of work around behavior change and habit design. And in order for any human to take any action, right, this is the FOG behavior model, 3 things need to happen. There needs to be a certain level of motivation, a certain level of the ability to do the thing, and a prompt, right, to take that action. And you have to get people over the action line. So what this means is that when people's motivation is higher, the action that you're asking them to take can be a bit harder to do, and they'll still be able to get over the action line. But if their motivation is really low, then you need to make it so easy to take the action in order for them to get over the action line, right? And so that's why I was saying Givebutter software, they really make it so easy for your donors to take action. They also, through the design of their campaign pages, increase motivation of the donors. But what comes back to you is prompting those donors and ensuring that your copy is really connecting with your donors in the ways that they're aligned and connected to your organizations, back to all the things that Jacob was saying before. Okay. The third A that we have is around being attentive to your funders' timeline. And this actually goes to the model that I was just showing you. So end of year, your donors are motivated around external factors that actually impact their giving to you, right? So end of year is the critical time to be thinking about lapsed donors, and I'll talk about that in a second, corporate matching opportunities, and stock donations, because all 3 of these things relate to this inner motivation that your donors or potential donors or lapsed donors already have, which increases their likelihood of getting over that action line. So let's talk about lapsed donors for a second. We have this belief, you guys, that because someone didn't give last year, they are less likely to give this year. But the statistics around influence, the science around influence, actually suggests the exact opposite. That if somebody said no to an ask last year, they are more likely to say yes to an ask this year. That is what the numbers tell us. Surprise. But we don't see data like this in our giving because we don't ask again. We don't invite them again. Okay, so that's the number one thing I want you to take away around lapsed donors. In terms of, I'm going fast, Floyd. I know we are trying to get to Q&A. So the thing I want you to be, we can go to the next slide, aware of, right, with lapsed donors are the stories we create about their lack of interest in our organization. That, again, that is a story, okay? The second thing I want you to be aware of for end of year is corporate matching. Oh my gosh, you guys, there is 6 to 10 billion with a B dollars that go unclaimed every year through corporate matching. And here's some data around the fact that corporate matching is in and around your organization in a billion different ways as well. And the amazing thing is that Givebutter has an integration with Double the Donation. So they make it so incredibly easy for you to get those matching gifts. And this is one of the most untapped things that I see organizations sort of miss at end of year. So in your communications, in your segments, I want you to think about how you can include corporate matching donations and use that Double the Donation function. And then the last piece of this is stock donating, right? So people's motivation around stock donating is higher right now because they're thinking about their taxes for next year, right? So you don't need to create as much of that motivation yourself. You can just tap into the motivation that donors are already feeling and leverage it as a moment to invite them to give to your organization through stock, which means they can give 20% more with the same financial impact. A lot of what I see hold organizations back from even talking about stock donations with their funders is the fact that they feel like they don't know everything about stock donating. And so it makes them really nervous to talk about it at all. But there are so many different resources out there around stock donating. You don't need to be the expert. You just need to prompt with curiosity and invitation, and let your donors know that it's a great way to give and increase their impact with you. Okay, the last thing I'll just say is how to find out more about me and what I do and hear more about these tips sort of expanded. You can come to my free masterclass, which is just at malloryerickson.com/free. And if you end up, all of the things I talked about today are from inside my program, the Power Partners Formula. And if you decide to join that program at the end of the webinar, which is just a free training, if you decide to join that program, I am offering for the first time ever 25% off for my Givebutter family. You just put in butter into the scholarship code at the end. So grateful to be here and get to know all of you. And Floyd, I'm ready to roll to Q&A.
Oh my gosh. Okay. You see me? I'm taking notes myself. Okay. How do I be like this? Come on. Wow. If that was good, y'all, let us know in the chat. That was good. That was good. I want to see what y'all thinking. If that was good, let us know. But Mallory, Jacob, that was amazing. So I'm going to jump right in because we do have quite a few questions. The first one, I will actually send it to Jacob. So Michelle asked during your presentation, how does a solo employee do this? How do they get involved with the social media ads? How do they get the ball started? If they're not a videographer, not a fundraiser by trade, there's very little help from the board because their board is older. How do they get involved and get started?
And I will, I want to be in full transparency that oftentimes the barrier to entry is that it is not the easiest to do right off the get-go. It does take some time. It does take some energy. What I would encourage you guys to, though, especially given the time of year that we're in, you can link your Facebook account to your Facebook Business Manager and just test the waters. If there is spare money lying around, if you can wiggle some budget out, put $50, $100 towards a campaign that is strong on the call to action front and just start testing yourself. I mean, yes, there's so many, wormholes that we could dive into around specific strategies, again, kind of multiple tiers, different marketing funnels, all that. But at the end of the day, really boiled down, what this platform enables you to do is just put your messaging in front of an audience that you think it will resonate with. And so to answer your question, just try, just test. There's low risk, only high reward. And if there was ever a time where you're likely to see bang for your buck, it's end of the year, like Mallory was alluding to, when people are pre-wired to be responsive, to be receptive, to want to donate, to want to partner. And then once you do that testing, once you kind of get your feet wet, you can really validate, oh, wow, with my limited experience going into that, with that limited amount of resources, this is what we were able to generate. It might be worth it to set aside more for this. And then you can really build out your ongoing strategy moving forward.
I love that. See, don't stress, just test. Okay, we can use that as a line. Don't stress, just test. Okay.
Love that.
Michelle Bain says Mallory is awesome. We agree. I have a question about corporate matching gift donations. We are approaching corporations for the first time this year. Come on, Michelle, don't stress, just test. I really like the matching gift campaign. Is that an odd request to make for a first-time offer this holiday season? What do you think, Mallory?
I don't think so at all. Probably, first of all, hi, Michelle. But I would say that if you are approaching corporate funders right now, or the relationships you already have with corporate funders, I would try to figure out if they already have matching set up through an entity like Double the Donation. Then it's really easy to figure out something sort of strategic for them. Or if you live in a part of the country or any country where there's a particular business that is big in that area, I would just even quickly Google, like, do they match, company employee giving, right? And then you could create more of that sort of strategic alignment strategy with a particular company, with a particular business. The other way to use corporate matching this time of year is for folks who maybe aren't on double the donation or aren't big companies, mid-sized companies, would be to see if the company would put up a certain match and then challenge the rest of their company to give. And that if that's raised by employees in that moment, the company will match it. And that could be an awesome way for them to set up even a Givebutter campaign tied to your organization that gets sent out to all of their employees and invites them to, let's say, raise $2,500 collectively. And when they do, the company is going to match it right then and there for $5,000. So I say you just want to customize this around the alignment with the donor, the tech capability that they currently have, and the amount of alignment you feel with that business entity in order to decide if that's the right thing to leverage specifically one-on-one for end of year. So I know that was a lot of information really fast.
I love that. See, as y'all keep talking, these things keep coming to me. Alignment determines the assignment. Come on, somebody. When you're you're going to know the specific assignment you have for that donor. Come on, walk away with it. So I'm going to stick with you, Mallory. Maribel asked another question that I think will be good for you. I like the idea of phone calls to donors to thank them, but my team thinks it's intrusive. What are your thoughts?
I think that is a limiting belief that we have. I mean, the reality is that if somebody doesn't want to pick up the phone, they won't pick up the phone. Why are we telling ourselves a story that's going to hold us back from taking an action that could be really impactful? The science around influence also tells us very clearly that the most influence we have is in person. The second most influence we have is on the phone, right? Like, so verbally or like via Skype. Oh my God, Zoom. And then lastly are these other sort of forms of engagement. So making phone calls is absolutely a way to increase your sort of influence with the donor, create authentic connection, build a real relationship with them. I love what Jacob said before. I cannot remember the exact words. I wish I had written it down, but it was basically like all of this is about how do you build a relationship with an organization that feels more like a human than a transaction with an entity, right? Like I just want to double click on that thing that he said. And I think that's what these phone calls are about. And so the reality is your staff is nervous about making those phone calls, and that's okay. I think creating space for them to share that openly, to talk about that discomfort, for the organization to have some safe and supportive conversation, acknowledge and validating those things, and then really supporting each other to go into this thing that is a little bit scary to do. But the reality is it is so much more aligned with the impact you all are trying to make in the world.
I love such good comments and feedback. All right, let's ask one more question. Super sorry we can't get to all of them, but I'll end this one with Jacob. So Justin asks, how do you know if your ads are actually reaching the right people? So you talked a lot about reaching your target audience. How do you know if you're actually reaching the people that you want to reach?
That's a great question. And honestly, I think that is one of the main benefits that the digital spaces offers us as a whole. You know, some of the more tried and true marketing measures, which I still am a complete advocate for, will never be removed. You know, billboards, magazines, paid media, you know, in a newspaper, you know, things of that sort. One of the challenges has always been, how do we know who saw that? You know, how do we know that that billboard led directly to a donation? Thankfully, within Facebook Business Manager, within Google Analytics, within the Givebutter platforms, these tools enable us to directly attribute specific actions that are taken and the journey that was taken leading up to that actual action. And so within our campaigns, we can really identify, man, okay, this individual interacted with education, this awareness campaign. Then they came back and interacted with this engagement campaign. And then when we came forward with a campaign that was strong on the call to action front around donating, they then actually took that action of investing and making a one-time donation. And so that, in essence, is one of the biggest value adds of the digital spaces. It's really kind of provided us the answer to the question of, hey, what can we expect to get in return when we allocate this dollar in that way? And so really being in tune with the metrics and the analytics and the reporting is what enables us to be really successful in these digital marketing campaigns.
I love, and this one, I know we don't have much time, but I do think this is an important question that I'm gonna reach to both of you. If someone didn't participate in Giving Tuesday, I'll ask this question to you, Jacob, and then to Mallory. If you could give me one sentence, what is one way for them to start their momentum right now at the end of the year?
That's a great question. I would say if you have anything that tells your story, whether that is video, whether that is an annual report, anything that quickly can summarize the value of your organization and the impact of partnering with you, blast that out to the masses. Get that in front of as many eyes as you possibly can, because like Mallory was alluding to, that alignment piece, that story piece, that's what drives that action. That's what drives that relationship. And so if you had to do one thing in the next 3 weeks, start with the story, find something that speaks to that story, and just start blasting it to the masses.
I love that. And Mallory, same question in 1 minute or less.
Well, to second everything that Jacob said, and then just to say that in that action model, the FOG behavior model that I showed you, the thing about motivation is that to increase motivation, you need to increase hope. Motivation is the relationship between hope and fear. Fear drives motivation down. Hope drives motivation up. So in the stories that you're telling, you want to be really double clicking on hope, especially during the holiday season. We know that people want to hear positive storytelling. And the other thing I just want to add is that you want to make sure you're doing this with your staff. Okay. So, and your team and your board, right? The first step at increasing or starting your momentum is to start inside. Start with you, create hope within yourself, create hope within your teams, in your board. And that's how your community is going to feel that hope and excitement and momentum too. So thanks. I love that question.
Wow. See, I'm so glad I asked it. Come on, Mallory. All right, fam. So we're going to close things out, but I just want to remind all of you, first of all, thank you so much. This has been one of the best years we could have ever imagined because of each and every one of you. I know this is our last webinar of the year, but get ready because 2022, we're going to come with even more great tips, even more great panelists. I also want to encourage you guys all to fill out the feedback survey. I know we have a link directly in this slide, but I'm sure Grace will also drop it in the chat as well. Please let us know your feedback for the survey. We want to know how we can keep making these as great as they possibly can be. So please take a few seconds, only 7 questions, y'all, I promise. Fill out that feedback survey and let us know how things are going and what you want to see in our webinars. And then last but not least, as I mentioned, stay tuned for Givebutter's 2022 webinar schedule. I'm so excited to let you guys know the partners that we have on board. We're going to be talking about things like corporate matching. We're going to be talking about corporate sponsorships and so much more next year. So get ready. And I hope, with no further ado, you guys have an amazing rest of your year. Maximize that momentum. Align your intention, okay? And you're going to see the best year yet. Have a blessed one, okay? Bye.
You turned this from an idea in a dorm room into the #1 rated fundraising platform on the internet.
You raised over $100 million for charitable causes just in the last year.
You are making the world a better place, one gift at a time.